Eddie Canales is a retired union organizer who came out of retirement to open the modest South Texas Human Rights Center to deal with the missing migrant crisis. Canales is the only humanitarian help available in Brooks County, and his phone never stops ringing with families desperate to find their missing loved ones. So again, we welcome Mr. Eddie Canales.
Well, good morning, everybody. I am Eduardo Canales. I'm the director of the South Texas Human Rights Center. I am privileged to do a little intro here regarding the film. Originally, I'm thinking it was 2015 that the center was founded in 2013. And I'm going to recollect here maybe a few, thoughts that are wrong here, facts that are wrong here. But nevertheless, I met Jeff Bemis and Lisa Molmont, who are the filmmakers. They came into Brooks County with the fact that they had found out that the bodies, that Brooks County was a, would I say, the center of all the migrant deaths that were occurring on the Texas-Mexican border. Had rapidly surpassed deaths in Arizona and Laredo, and Brooks County is located in the RGV, Rio Grande Valley sector of the Border Patrol. And so when they started filming, they really didn't know the direction of the film in terms of how long, what they were going to do with the film. I think they had gotten, some information, and they came in and initially were interviewing one of the original persons that had done some exhumations in Brooks County, Dr. Lori Baker. She, in essence, is a person that had found out what was going on in terms of the amount of deaths that was occurring in Brooks County, and she had herself had found out from one other reporter out of San Antonio. So they worked 400, I think it's 400 hours of film that they have. They wound up getting, and and sometimes I had a sense that they were there. Sometimes I didn't even realize that they were there. And we got to know each other very well. They were very, very consistent in their presence in terms of getting a full scope of the corridor of death. We want to say that in terms of Brooks County, Falfurrias, Texas, where the South Texas Human Rights Center is located. It's about 75, 80 miles from the actual border. And then there's a checkpoint that is about 17 miles from the city. That checkpoint is the pivotal, the point where people try to circumvent to escape or detection from Border Patrol, and therein lies the crux of the matter in terms of them jumping out, being part of the smuggling, the cartel, the coyotes, the guides, making money off people, and then they try to circumvent that checkpoint, entering brush ranches as far back as maybe 50 miles. And this film does depict a lot of the conditions there, and it does highlight a couple of families that encountered that came into Brooks County looking for their love. And I'll leave it at that. And I hope you guys I mean, it is a long documentary, but I think and has won the Peabody Award and shown beginning to be shown all over the world. We're going to be screening the film in Mexico City. I'll be in Houston at Rice University here on mid-October, and I'll leave it at that. And any questions that people may have, please relay those to the chat, and we'll try to address the issue, the questions. Again, we have a broken immigration system, and there's no political will really to fix it and to prevent death. It is death by policy in terms of deterrence by prevention by deterrence. And let me just close my remarks by saying there's no deterrence. There's nothing that keeps people from coming to our country, to the United States, for a better life. All those conditions and factors in the country south of the U.S.-Mexico border, those are that force people to flee, are created by conditions, oligarchs, dictators, catastrophes, weather, climate, uncontrolled civil societies in all these various countries, a lot of corruption. So let's start the film, and I'll be here after you guys view this film, and I'm happy to host you along with Barbara and the University of Metropolitan University.
Eddie, we'll get started with, I'm going to just read some of these questions directly from our audience. I'm certain we have folks who are quite familiar with this situation, and it might be very new to others. And I want to also thank Dallas Jurisovic for having her Spanish class with us today. Who are the coyotes? Are they human smugglers? If so, are they from Mexico and countries south of the border, or are they Americans who are doing the smuggling?
In most cases, there are residents and U.S. Citizens that are doing the smuggling. The organized crime cartel does not, have people deported, even though, on a consistent basis, even though most people are, and it's the most difficult part is to catch the coyote, the guide, el caminador, the people that is walking people through. So he's the last one that's being caught, and hopefully, a lot of people, when they scatter, I think the instructions are, hang tight, I'll come back for you, because it's all about money. It's $1 billion industry, and it's all about money. And which is the irony of all of this, of course, is because it's money, and the policy creates the crime, or forces the organized crime to utilize the commodity of people and workers. And I will say workers is the essential workers, or necessary workers, immigrant workers, and that's the fallacy within the policy. But the coyotes are the ones that are mostly residents from this country.
We have some comments coming in, and I think this tells the value of all the work to make this documentary. My heart is heavy knowing the extent of the loss to the families. I did not realize how bad it was. What a powerful film. Tears are flowing. Everybody keep sending your questions through. So, you had mentioned this prior to starting the documentary, but the documentary also gave us pretty clear details on how the U.S. deterrence policies are forcing migrants into dangerous locations. Could you emphasize that just a little bit more with the audience so we don't miss that point?
Deterrence by prevention, began in the mid 90s, I believe. And it did create walls being built on port of entries, the major cities on the U.S. border. So maybe on both sides of bridges and to extend out, which began to force people into more dangerous areas. And so the policy, it's an expectation that they will be forced to more, or thinking that being forced to more dangerous areas is going to be a deterrence. As I began my comments before the film started, there is no deterrence. This policy is death by policy. I had visiting a very dear friend this past 3 weeks, this past month. She wants to call them homicides. Rapporteurs from the UN have looked at this and quasi extrajudicial killings in terms of the state creating this policy. So it is expected that people will die, and that's the callousness and the extra punitive regarding the policy, because you're forcing workers that are needed in this country to get here hook or crook. However, in the more dangerous areas, the more isolated areas, which is what's causing the death. What
caused you to decide to come out of retirement and start the South Texas Human Rights Center?
Well, going back, to my college days and, having a long-term union organizing career, mostly organizing immigrant workers, whether in the service industry, construction industry, but at the same time, coming back to Texas, in terms of family, taking care of my mom who had gotten sick. So when I got back into South Texas, some friends reached out to me, people that I had continued to organize with over the years, and they said, Eddie, the border, and the term has come up several times, fronterizo, eres de la frontera. And, when I thought about that, it was reflective about that in terms of, my brother was born right on the border. My mother had me in Corpus, but she was living on the border. Great-grandparents, grandparents, and parents are from a little small community right on the river on the other side of Roma, Texas, which is in Stark County, which is a county right on the border. And didn't realize that, I'm living in Corpus Christi, taking care of my mom, didn't realize death was occurring 1 hour from Corpus Christi, literally in our backyard. And that's the issue in terms of the publicity or the knowledge of the general community around the country in terms of what's happening on the border. A lot of misinformation, a lot of on purpose, and in terms of the fact that labor that's needed are coming through and dying. And there's no need for that to happen because we have the labor needs, immigrant worker needs, essential workers here. So fronterizo, I was asked to serve, asked to help and make contacts, and that's how it all began. I mean, it was a surprise to me also in terms of the number. In Brooks County, this is 2013. The year before, 130 bodies had been recovered in Brooks County alone.
Thank you. So the documentary did a nice job of showing that there are people in the area who are very supportive of the families and those who are crossing the border. And then you have the other side with, I wrote down the name, let's see. The Texas Border Control Volunteers, I think was the title of the group that we saw. From your perspectives, Eddie, are we talking about 50-50 or what would you say the public opinion is in South Texas about what's happening?
I do not believe that it is anywhere near 50-50, even though there is people fall prey to misinformation campaigns and to the hysteria that's created. The border communities have always responded in a compassionate way to the migration and people coming across and turning themselves in. All the 95% of the apprehensions at this moment right now are all people voluntarily turning themselves in. Some people, have some legitimate asylum claims in blanket order that was just given by Biden regarding temporary protected status for Venezolanos is an example of a Band-Aid situation, to deal with the major influx of people from Venezuela coming. Generally, the community is very, very compassionate, very supportive. And my best gauge of that is when, I get to water stations, people have already placed water in there, cases of water. So but there is the fringe element. There's the extreme element in this country that we're dealing with. We're dealing with the some white supremacy. We're dealing with the nativists, with xenophobia, and the MAGA crowd in terms of any type of reform or any type of adjustment regarding immigration. We're way behind the curve here. This is the deadliest border in the world, as being declared by the UN. So it's unnecessary, but that's how we're the present situation that we have right now. And when the film started, Mike Vickers, of course, accuses me of things that is just a projection regarding some people, groups like him, stealing water stations, and that had happened. And I had a route, 8-year route, 10 back around the West County of Brooks County, and I just had 12 water stations removed. So I'm backtracking and trying to get more access to some of the ranches, so which is the more effective way for water stations to be in terms of the ranches, so that because for one, the owners understand and support the effort, and it's in private property, and they'll be secure in that aspect of it. So, the most important thing is that Brooks County has been a very supportive community in general, and faced with a crisis, faced with the issue of migrant death there in Brooks County.
So for everybody, I want you to know, I do send out an email after this to all the people who are connected to Zoom, and perhaps Eddie can provide me with information on how you might support the South Texas Human Rights Center. And we don't have to speak that right now, but I can get that into there. We have a question. Is the woman from the University of Texas, I think it was Texas A&M, who's exhuming the bodies, is she the only one, or are there several groups like that?
No, Barbara, that's unique. And when you said we're the Brooks, the South Texas Human Rights Center is the only one in South Texas or in Brooks County, doing water stations, doing a hotline, doing forensic work. We're the only ones on the border. There's some efforts, have been some historical efforts in Arizona, but we're definitely the only group in Texas doing this work. And that is something that we're dealing with. The operation identification, Dr. Kate Spradley is at Texas State University, which is in San Marcos, Texas. And she's the director of operation identification. Dr. Spradley and I have worked together for 10 years. When we founded the South Texas Human Rights Center, she founded operation identification, and we also formed the Forensic Border Coalition in terms of internationally and nationally, trying to create the best protocols and practices in dealing with the investigation, the recovery, and the repatriation, identification of and repatriation of migrant unidentified bodies and migrant bodies.
Another comment from the audience: it makes me angry when the ranchers call them illegal aliens, when in actuality the ranchers are the immigrants. If they knew the true history of Texas, Texas was indigenous land. I know you mentioned to me earlier that you have been in Omaha, so we have a question related to Omaha's population. Thank you, Mr. Canales. What else can we do to support, get involved with our brothers and sisters that are looking for a better future for them and their families in our local community of Omaha, Nebraska?
I'm placing in the chat the address of the center. Donations will be accepted there. I believe our Facebook page accepts a donation, but I'll double check and make sure. That's the more direct support. I mean, we'll use it for water station materials. We'll use it for exhumations. I mean, we've done exhumations in about 5 or 6 counties already with operation identification. And the exhumations are burials of the unidentified over the history of migration in South Texas and the different sectors of Brooks County, and Laredo and Del Rio, where we do field work and do field research in terms of where the unidentified are buried. And that's where we've been able to do these exhumations and get these bodies and into operation identification, which is the laboratory and Freeman Ranch in San Marcos. So that's that work will continue as long as we have resources. So we're welcome all donations in that regards, and we'll do general support. We'll assist all aspects of our program.
So we've got a link there if anybody's interested in that should take you right to that Facebook page. So we do appreciate that. Found it very interesting, the part about the Mexican consulate providing $2,000 or whatever to send the individual's remains back. I had just been in a counselor session, and the council officer was telling people, we want you to know that we will help with these type of, if someone passes, we do help them to get their remains back home. So was that situation ever resolved? In terms of, did anybody respond to why a coffin wasn't provided and that the gentleman was sent back in the tiny little box?
It just reflects how undignified and how processes and protocols and practices are as it pertains to migrants, undocumented migrants, and nobody thinks, oh well, it's just a migrant, we'll just throw him here, we'll just bury the person here. Very recently, I mean, we in Brooks County, we pride ourselves in working with the Brooks County Sheriff's Department, Sheriff's Office in terms of the best practices. By almost by default, there is a portable morgue there that holds bodies as they're recovered. And there's a process from 2021, the process of fingerprinting and comparing fingerprints has been a very expedient process for families in terms of getting closure and claiming bodies and repatriating the bodies. So we that effort continues to this moment. But in January we had to do an emergency exhumation in Maverick County, which is Eagle Pass, because they didn't have refrigeration. They didn't have capacity at the medical examiner's office in Laredo, Texas, which is Webb County. And so they had no place to place these bodies. And we uncovered this on TikTok and on Facebook in terms of bodies just literally being thrown into the graves. And Dr. Spradley and I, we mobilized and did the emergency exhumation, because the longer unidentified bodies are buried, the longer people forget, and it takes to do the identification processes. So we wound up exhuming 26 bodies in January and early this past year and late last year. But we're, the protocols are and the best practices is one of our endeavors in terms of the Forensic Border Coalition to try to maximize, that process for the unidentified. And what the practices reflect is that there's not a medical examiner office in South Texas. And the counties that are right on the tip of Texas, which is Cameron, Hidalgo, Starr, and then coming back up, Jim Hogg and Brooks County, Kennedy County, Willis. These are the counties that reflect most of the recoveries of migrant bodies in the RGV sector, the Rio Grande sector. So we need a medical examiner system for the general population in those counties, which would enhance protocols and best practices. And we also need a centralized identification center for the unidentified bodies. And we don't encounter a situation like we encountered one in Maverick County, where people were short of resources and knowledge. And there's only 10 or 12 medical examiner offices in the state of Texas. So each county has their own system of finding, recovering bodies, investigation of bodies, storage of bodies and protocols, and they're all very dependent on the justice of the peace acting like a coroner when there's no medical examiner. So for the greater good, we're pushing for a regional medical examiner system, and on the short time frame, we feel we can establish an ID center in Edinburgh, which is right next to where the morgue is for Hidalgo County, which is very, very state of the art in that respect, but it's still privatized facility. So, that's still on the forensic end in terms of the work that we want to continue to do regarding those protocols and practices that we can better. I mean, we're beginning that process. Our next legislative session here is 2025. We need to move a lot faster as we talk to more stakeholders that are being supportive in terms of those efforts.
Thank you very much. Your time, your work, it's all so impressive. And we could talk for hours, but that is not what we committed you to. So do you have a final message you'd like to give our audience, Eddie? And then I will kind of move things forward here so that everybody can get back to their normal activities today.
I mean, I kind of goofed in sending the address, but I've sent in several different chats. But it is there. 117 is East Miller, in Falfurrias, Texas. That's our center. 10 years, celebrating 10 years. OpID celebrating 10 years, and Forensic Border Coalition celebrating 10 years. It's a very difficult process for families. Let me just close with this. It's all about us assisting families, mothers, fathers, brothers, sisters, in search of family members. And however we can facilitate that process to shorten the process and closure, and because people will family members will continue to wonder whatever happened to my brother. I want to know what happened to my father. I really, I got a note this morning from somebody, somebody here, undocumented, irregular in this country, getting stopped for a taillight and deported, and then their father is missing for 10 years. And those are tragedies that happen every day. Unless we deal with the system in itself and create a process where people are regularized, and I say not an open border, but I'm saying people are regularized where people come to the port of entry. They identify themselves. They have documents identifying themselves. There's a background check that can be done, and people pay a nominal fee for the processing and for their temporary Social Security card, work permit, and therein lies the fact that we pull them out of the desert, we pull them out of the river, we pull them out of the mountains, we create what we've been part of is the global compact on migration, which is safe, orderly, and regular migration. That's the solution. Regular pathways. And we have to create the political will for that to happen. And people have no desire to be citizens or be residents. As long as people can come and go, then we'll also deal with the root causes, because people have labor mobility, and for that's a concept that we should promote, the regularization and labor mobility, because it's not working. People are dying right now, and and um, and the only reason that we're dealing with very restrictive processes is because the of the right, and I say the racism and the white supremacy that's preventing other people from coming here to work and then being able to go back and forth and better their own situation. I think you will have a more stabilized economies all over this hemisphere, but we're dealing with a lot of conditions, oligarchs, dictators, corruption, climate change in terms of why people are coming to this country, forced migration, and we can fix it. It can be if we have the political will to do it. I thank you for your attention. And it is 117 East Miller, Falfurrias, Texas, 78355 at the South Texas Human Rights Center. Thank you very much.
Mr. Eduardo Canales, we are so thankful to have you here. I know you will remain in my prayers and possibly in those of many others. It concerns me when people in the documentary say they're suspicious of you, et cetera, et cetera. But we wish you the best and thank you for your work. And I'm sure that many of us will be thinking about how we can help in the future, if it's not in our own community, but in some way help at the border.
Thank you, everybody, for your support.
Oh, that's lovely. Yeah. And I do want to call out also Laura Lamar, who had her multicultural issues class here too. I didn't catch that early on. She said her students stayed longer than class, which is not normal. So thank you. Everybody's learned. There's so much in this documentary. Kudos to everybody who worked on that. This could be used again. And I do want to let those of you know who have Metropolitan Community College credentials, you will have the opportunity to see this documentary again through the library's streaming services. If you don't know how to access that online, communicate with any library and tell them you'd like to see Missing in Brooks County. For those of you who do not have Metro Community College credentials, you could physically go to the library and watch it there, and somebody would help you with that. So thank you for putting up the evaluation that is in the chat. We really appreciate the feedback. If you attend and complete evaluations for at least 10 programs and share your contact information, we will recognize you at the end of 2023. And then we do have a couple of programs coming up in October that I want you to know about. These are both hybrids. One is Dr. Javier Avila, professor of English at Northampton Community College. He has an amazing way of engaging with facts, humor, poetry about his life as a Puerto Rican and moving to the US. This particular show is called Standing Up, and I hope you can join us either in person at the Elkhorn Valley campus on Monday, October 9th, 12:15 to 1:30, or you can watch it virtually. That also is in the chat for your information. And then on the Wednesday following that, the Hispanic Flamenco Ballet from Miami Beach, Florida, will be with us. Once again, they've been here before. This is an amazing experience. I strongly encourage you to get to the South Omaha campus. They will have two different shows, so you can stay for both of them if you like. This is free and open to the public. Normally, their shows cost over $20 each, or over $20 for the shows for admission, but we offer that to you for free. 10:30, 11:30, and 12 noon to 1:05, South Omaha campus, CAM building, room 120, and we will offer virtual viewing of that, but being there in person will be more exciting. So thanks to everybody who's been with us. We really appreciate you, and thank you again, Mr. Canales, for making this such a meaningful opportunity for people to learn, consider, and move forward into the future.